All right, welcome to this week's episode of the Pops and Drops podcast.
What up, people?
We thought we would delve into another important topic this week, maybe one that will be a little less contentious than the political contest that is yet to be totally resolved.
It's over, man. Come on. You got it. Every lawsuit is being shot down.
All right, so this week, global warming.
Okay.
Yeah, now they've apparently raided a place in Germany called Seidel, where they have the servers for the voting machines, and they're finding evidence of vote switching or something. I haven't seen.
That's You're just spewing conspiracy theory bullshit, man.
Okay, we'll see. But
when Fox News says it's bullshit and agrees with everybody else,
I don't watch Fox News. All right, so what do you know about global warming?
I know that due to human greed and over-industrialization, that we are increasing a natural cycle by hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Okay. The last estimate I saw was 50 years.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a natural cycle, which you just confirmed with the way you framed that statement, right? You know that over the last 300,000 years, there's a natural cycle to the global temperature.
Yes, but we are speeding it up.
Right.
So there's a generation that could be killed because of us speeding it up instead of us trying to slow it down.
Well, I don't know that it killed is on the table.
So Florida gets wiped out because of a giant wave. People won't die. All the tsunamis, like Katrina, like people die, man.
Yeah, but that's
because humans are bad right, for the environment.
Keep in mind, you're talking about something happening 50 years sooner than it would otherwise happen anyway.
That's still a generation.
Okay,
that's still a generation, and that's
a different generation. It's a generation earlier.
It's my generation.
Oh, okay.
It's my generation having to clean up your mess.
So, well, but again, it would happen 50 years later. It's not like you can.
So you would rather wipe me out than wipe out my kids. That's what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, if it's going to happen anyway, it doesn't make sense to completely wreck the global economy to try and
again,
slow
you're placing
something
money
down.
Over people. That's that's your problem.
People need money to eat.
Yeah. And they need to survive.
Yes, exactly. So they need jobs. They need the economy to function. And if you put in draconian measures just to postpone something for 50 years that was going to happen anyway, that's not smart.
Yeah. It's about trying to be better people.
That's true. And I agree. I think there's lots of ways that we can live more in harmony with the environment. I'm all for that.
Like reducing the cow population.
That sure, why not? It's not going to solve the problem, but that's nothing wrong with that.
And focusing on
the biggest impact, believe it or not, would be from revising residential building codes. Because right now, when you build a new house, you are required to follow certain rules that, relative to the technology that's been developed by Michael Reynolds in particular, with thermal mass housing and passive solar heating, the building codes are what is draining using all of the fossil fuels and creating all of the pollution.
So preventing like asbestos and lead-based paint?
Those are fine.
Lead-based paint and asbestos are not fine.
Those building codes are fine. But what I'm saying is particular ways that particular building materials that are prohibited, like tires, like the most efficient construction technology available today is the Earthship technology that Michael Reynolds has developed, which is using thermal mass housing, pounded tire bricks, stucco, catching your own rainwater, processing your own sewage in a contained unit that essentially processes, creates the electricity it uses. It does not require fossil fuel for heating, processes all of the sewage on site, reuses the water that it catches from the roof 3 times before it goes out into the Blackwater system. This technology is available, and it is illegal in most places. They will not let you build this kind of structure.
Why?
Because of the government, because of the building codes, because the builders, the home builders like Allen Homes and Ryan Homes and Eagle Homes and all these big giant builders want to keep their type of house in these subdivisions that people build with the houses crammed right one next to each other that use power from the grid and sewage processing plants and municipal sewer systems. They want to keep people attached to the system.
Yeah.
And that creates a lot more problems in the environment than cow farms.
Isn't methane the number one cause of the holes in the
It is methane, but it's not methane from cows. It's methane from landfills. And the landfills come from cramming people together into subdivisions living in these cookie cutter wood frame houses.
I agree with that point, but I'm not necessarily sure that the millions upon millions of cows, billions maybe, that are raised and slaughtered and are constantly farting aren't a massive impact. Are you sure that that's not a massive impact?
Well, relative to what? Massive is subjective. If you want to be specific, it's less of a problem than the methane that's created from landfills.
It's one that is easier to fix at this moment right now.
Easier to fix at this. That's not true.
Yeah, it is. Because if everyone stopped eating red meat,
there are and then what? You're talking about taking food away from people.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about replacing it.
Okay. The human physiology
was not meant to consume dairy. Humans were not meant to consume dairy. Our biology,
but
we are not because when you drink milk from a cow,
yes,
you are ingesting chemicals that are made to turn a baby cow into a giant cow.
Well,
that's why everyone in America is fat. It's because they're consuming cheese and red meat.
That's not true.
It's a major factor.
Not anywhere near the factor of high fructose corn syrup.
Processed
sugars and high fructose corn syrup are the major reasons for
It's another thing that needs to be changed.
Yes. Healthier diet. And that's another thing that I have to, credit where credit is due. Joe Rogan talks about all the time. The fact that the government is saying the solution to COVID is masks and lockdowns, and nobody is talking about vitamin D and zinc and staying hydrated and losing weight and exercising and getting healthy. The death from COVID, the death rate from COVID among healthy people is almost non-existent. Healthy people almost never die from COVID. It's the people that are overweight, and it's the people.
Well, then how is Trump and Chris Christie still alive?
Exactly.
They are overweight.
Yes.
They are morbidly obese. Disgusting human beings.
And still, COVID only affected them for a couple of days because they had good hospital care. They caught it early and they took the medicine. COVID is not as dangerous as they're making it out to be. And they're taking control of everybody's life over something that's just a little bit worse than the flu.
Yeah, but to the elderly, it's deadly.
Yes.
And that's why everyone should wear a mask.
Sure, if you're interacting with elderly or people that also interact with elderly, you should.
Everyone interacts with elderly people.
That's not true.
Yeah, there are old people everywhere. I'm interacting with an elderly person right now.
Yes, but you're not everyone. You live in a pretty unique situation. There's not a lot of multi-generational households in the United States.
But when I lived in LA, there were old people all over the place. Old people lived in my building. I saw them every day in every apartment I've ever lived in every grocery store I've ever gone to. Well, in my entire life, in every city I've ever met, there's been old people.
Fine, but if you're a young family that has a couple of primary school age kids and your parents are either across the country or you don't see them all the time, it's totally ridiculous for the government to shut down your place of business and keep your kids at home when you're not going to interact with people that are at high risk. If you are not going to interact with people at high risk, it makes no sense for you to have to give up your job.
It's not just elderly people. It's people with asthma. There are tons of underlying conditions that you don't know about and you aren't aware about.
True.
I have a friend who has 3 kids and she has asthma and one of her kids has asthma and she can't, she's young and healthy.
Okay. And if she knows she has a high risk household, she should follow the
Everyone should follow everyone. It's a simple thing. It's a simple thing.
How is it a simple thing
to wear a mask? A mask.
Yeah, I'm not talking about wearing a mask. I'm talking about
if everyone wore a mask. If everyone wore a mask, we wouldn't have to shut down everything.
That's not true.
The reason why we had such a massive shutdown is because Trump came out and said it's going to disappear. He said you don't need to wear a mask. Don't worry about it. That's why we are the leader in deaths and cases in the world. Is because Trump came out and said it's not a problem.
More people died per million in Belgium than the United States, and they did mandate masks. So your point, there is the scientific
evidence. More people died in Belgium? How many people died in Belgium? Over 250,000? I highly doubt that.
Chancellor, we talked about this before. Per million
It doesn't
people.
matter.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. The bottom line is the bottom line.
When you're evaluating policy, the death rate is what matters, not the death count.
The death count always matters because every life matters. And that's what you don't see because you see things through an economic, I only want to make money.
You're the one who doesn't think every life matters. You don't, because you completely discount everybody who has died from suicide, alcoholism, failure to get cancer screening. You discount all of those deaths. You say that has nothing, that doesn't count for some reason. The lockdowns cause more deaths.
The lockdowns are Trump's fault. They're Trump's fault. You have to at least admit that. When he came out and said, don't worry about it. If we had actually locked down, if we had actually done if people actually cared and we actually locked down for like a month and no one went anywhere and everyone wore masks, then COVID would be gone.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
That's
ridiculous.
It is. That's fantasy.
Then why is Taiwan having giant music festivals right now? Because they locked down.
They didn't lock down.
Yes, they did.
Wrong.
Yes, they did.
Taiwan's policy was to make everyone wear a mask and to quarantine anyone who came in the country for 14 days. That was Taiwan's policy. They did not lock down.
That is locking down.
No, it's not.
Shutting people
away.
Locking
down is telling people they have to stay in their homes and closing the restaurants and saying you can't have more than 10 people at a movie theater. That's lockdown.
Well, it wouldn't have happened in the first place if Trump wasn't such a failure.
Yeah. Let CNN and MSNBC tell you what to think. That's fine.
It's not CNN. It's everybody. It's the world, man.
It's not true.
It's the world. It's the world.
Look. Belgium followed the policy that you advocated from the beginning. Sweden did not. Belgium has more deaths per million than Sweden.
Does Sweden have more deaths?
Chancellor, when you are evaluating policy, it's deaths per million that matters.
No, that doesn't matter. It's deaths, period, man.
Then you can't evaluate policy. Because if you don't account for population differences, then you cannot evaluate which policies were most effective.
Why?
Because it's deaths per million that matters.
Why?
Because that's how you evaluate whether or not a policy is effective.
I say the more people die,
Then, okay, if you had 20 countries in this world that all had 100 people, and you had the United States that had 320 million, no matter what the United States did, we'd still have more deaths than the other. The other countries with 100 people in each country could have done absolutely nothing and had fewer deaths than we do.
Okay.
That's why deaths per million is how you evaluate what policies work. Because you have to account for population differences.
That still doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. Imagine 3 countries then. Maybe that's easier for you to to cognitively.
I understand what you're saying. I just disagree with it. I think that the bottom line is people matter.
Okay. Yes, people matter. Country A has 100 people. Country B has 1,000 people. Country C has 1 million people. Okay. Country C does everything you say should have been done. Immediate lockdowns. Everybody wears a mask. Everybody did wear a mask. Everybody locked down. Okay. Country B only did masks. Country C, Country A, whichever one, the smallest one, that was A, I guess, the one with 100 people, does nothing. Everybody runs around. Everybody just keeps going. Life is normal. 1 person dies in Country A. 10 people die in Country B. 1,000 people die in Country C.
Yeah. So Country C is the one that should have had stricter lockdown.
They had the most strict. Country C in this scenario had the most strict.
Well, we weren't Country C in that scenario. We were a country where the president came out and said, don't worry about this. You don't have to wear masks. All my MAGA people don't wear masks. I don't care. I'm going to go and I'm going to hold events. I'm going to hold super spreader events and I'm going to get you all sick and you're all going to fucking die. Like
Black Lives Matter rallies, super spreader events?
No, Black Lives Matter rallies, the ones that I went to, everyone was wearing a mask because everyone respects one another, unlike the MAGA people who don't give a fuck about anybody except for themselves.
Television people were not wearing masks.
You're lying. You're just lying. You're just lying.
I've watched Black Lives Matter rallies, riots on television. Half the people had a mask, half the people didn't.
No, you're lying. Everyone wore masks. You're lying. You're just straight up lying right now.
Chancellor, just watch the footage.
I have watched the footage and I was there. You are lying.
You went to one
It doesn't I went to one.
Okay, and the one march you went to, people had masks.
Everyone was wearing a mask.
Fine.
Even the disgusting police that were surrounding us and giving us dirty eyes wearing a mask.
And you watch the footage, the television coverage of the marches and rallies.
The right-wing Fox News coverage that was probably showing CNN, the Proud Boys who weren't wearing masks, not the Black Lives Matter people who were wearing masks.
Where the guy was standing on CNN saying mostly peaceful protest in front of the burning car behind him and the people running around with Black Lives Matter signs, no masks, hitting people over the head.
You're just making up bullshit.
No, I'm recounting live footage.
You're recounting bullshit. You're just making shit up.
Hardly.
Because for some reason you don't care about anyone who's not white and wealthy.
No, that's not true. Larry Elder, Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum. I care about all Americans regardless of their skin color.
Okay.
And that reminds me, there's a video, since you read the definition of liberal last week. There's a really cool video on PragerU where Dennis Prager talks about the difference between liberal and leftist. It'd be cool for you to watch it and to figure out whether you're a liberal or a leftist, because they're not the same thing.
Coming from a right-wing conservative point of view?
Coming from the technical definition of
right-wing conservative point of view, yeah, where they probably constantly attack anyone who isn't conservative.
No. It was about the technical...
PragerU isn't conservative?
The technical...
Is PragerU conservative?
Yes.
Okay, well, then there you go. Then everything that he says is bullshit to me, and I don't give a fuck what he says.
Okay, so then you're a leftist and not a liberal. So you were so proud of this definition of liberal that you looked up, and it doesn't even apply to you.
Your definition of leftist.
That's the definition
coming
of
from
leftist,
a conservative.
Where he gave concrete examples.
Coming from
of leftism.
A conservative.
Yes, with concrete examples. Anyway, you should watch the video. So global warming, there's at least a 300,000 year record from ice core samples in the geologic record. We have been warming, the globe has been warming since the last ice age 16,500 years ago. Which
could have been caused by another civilization doing the same things that we're doing now. That just wiped themselves out. That we don't have any record of.
Sure. So, it is possible and it's actually very likely that there have been other advanced human civilizations on this planet
who have wiped themselves out doing the exact same dumb shit that we're doing now.
That's quite possible. But
so why would you want to speed up the clock when you could slow it down? That's the question I have.
Because you're talking about sacrificing
It's not sacrificing anything. It's moving our resources away from the military and towards renewable energies and towards science. The problem with the MAGA people and the right-wing conservative people like yourself is that you don't believe in actual science.
Funny. I'm the one who's talking about science. I'm talking about geology, archaeology, cosmology. Yes, I'm talking about science. You're the one who's talking about the last thing that AOC tweeted.
But you're denying global warming.
I am. What did I just say? I just said the globe's been warming for 16,500 years. How's that denying global warming?
Because you're saying that we aren't the ones that are causing it.
And I said earlier that we're accelerating it.
And you still don't want to slow it down. You would rather us be wiped out so you could save $1.
It has nothing to do with wiping anybody out.
That's what you're saying.
No,
that's exactly what you're saying.
How are you equating?
You're saying I don't care if we speed it up and we wipe out your generation as long as I can have my money.
It's the problem.
That's the definition of greed.
You're equating global warming with wiping out human civilization.
That's what it will do.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't, Chancellor.
Wiping out Florida and California.
It's going to raise sea levels by 18 inches, which means there's going to be 5 to 7 feet less land around the coast of the United States.
Yeah.
So everybody who has those silly beach houses right on the water is going to get screwed.
Yeah.
And everybody who has a house that's 30 or 40 feet in from the high tide line is going to be fine.
Okay, so you don't care about the people. You don't care about the people who
I do.
who built their livelihood on the coast.
What's the trade-off? What is the trade-off? That's my question. You're saying you're willing to completely disable the entire U.S. economy so that the people who live next to the coast in Florida don't need to move 12 feet further inland.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying let's take the money out of the military and put it towards renewable energy.
And that
let's stop trying to pollute the environment. Let's reduce the massive red meat consumption and dairy. That's what I'm saying.
All of which is fine and which won't change anything. It doesn't make
from
a big
your point of view, but not from my point of view, and not from my kids' point of view, and not their point of view. And you got to stop looking at the past, and you got to stop looking. You got to start looking at the future.
I'm talking about hard numbers. I'm talking about the actual impact on the environment of these things that you are talking about. Less than 0.1%. Okay, cutting cow consumption down to 1/10 of what it is today is not going to make any difference.
Not in our lifetimes, but maybe in like 3 or 4 generations down the line.
Cycle. You know what a sine wave looks like?
No.
Okay. You know what a cycle looks like? Up, down, up, down, up, down, yes. Right? Okay. The Earth has a climate cycle.
Okay.
It's an 18,000-year cycle.
And we're speeding it up.
We're speeding up the approach to the peak. Yes, we're going to get to the peak 50 years sooner, and then the temperature.
That's an entire generation.
Yes, and then the temperature will start to go down again.
It's an entire generation that you don't care about because you would rather save $1. You would rather save the economy than save people.
Yes, because
you just admitted it. You care more about money than people because you just said yes.
No,
you just admitted that you care more about $1 than someone's life.
I care about the other 99.5% of the population. You don't care about the other 99.5% of the population. The only people you care about are the ones that are rich enough to have a house on the coast.
No, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You are being ridiculous. You can't negatively impact the lives of 99.5% of the population so that the 0.5% of the population who are going to be affected by a sea level rise of 18 inches have to move.
So because 99% of the people refuse to use energy efficient things and they want to just keep pumping gas or smog into the air. because they refuse to even look at the science, because they refuse to care about future generations. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that 99% of the population, which I don't really think this is the case, but if they actually looked at the information, would probably come to the same conclusion that it doesn't make sense to negatively impact the lives of the vast majority of the people to slow
negatively
down,
impact the lives of the vast majority of people to save lives.
To slow down the impact of something that's going to happen anyway because of the Earth's natural climate cycle. The sea levels are going to rise. They're going to rise over the next 30 years, or they're going to rise over the next 80 years. If you do all the things you're talking about, you might push back the peak to 80 years from now.
That's an entire generation
right.
that can figure out how to push it back even further.
Think about, you can't push... No, you can't push it back any further because it's the peak. It's going to start going back down again.
How do you know?
Because it's happened every 50,000 years over the last 300,000 years.
Again, you're looking in the past instead of towards the future. That's the problem. You're constantly looking in the past. You don't care about the future.
Chancellor, when you look at the geologic and archaeologic record of the Earth, okay, there are clear patterns of climate cycle. The temperature goes up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down.
Yeah.
Right.
And future scientists might be able to figure out how to make that stop.
The only way to make it stop is by to stop the precession of the Earth and to stop the way we travel through the universe. You can't make it stop.
You don't know that.
You're being ridiculous.
No, I'm not. I'm just looking towards the future instead of the past.
It will be easier to move to Mars than to change the way the Earth's climate works.
We might have to do that.
Fine, do it. But that's still not going to change anything. The Earth cycles. The Earth's climate cycles. There's a very clear geologic record over the last 300,000 years of the cycle.
And we know that we are increasing it, and we know that we're speeding it up. We know that we're speeding it up.
Yes.
So why would we continue to speed it up? Why can't we just try to be better people? You refuse to try to be a better person because you only care about money. You only care about the economy. You don't care about people. You don't care about the future. You don't care about future generations. You only care about money and the economy and how it's going to affect your fucking pocketbook.
How do you solve homelessness? Create more jobs. The only way to solve homelessness and to alleviate poverty is to increase economic activity.
By a Green New Deal, like investing in solar and energy and wind and creating jobs.
That creates jobs, but it erases twice as many.
In dangerous industries.
In
like
all,
coal miners.
In all
like
industries.
coal miners. It wipes out like coal miners. So instead of reinvesting in those communities.
It's all industry, Chancellor.
It's not all industry.
Yes, it is. The economy is tied together. The economy runs on energy. Solar and wind, first of all, don't even produce enough energy Yet, fine.
See, but instead of investing in the future, instead of discovering new technologies, you just refuse. You're like, I don't care as long as I don't care. I just want to make sure that the economy is strong because I don't care about anybody. I just want to make sure my pocketbook is okay.
A strong economy is the best way to care about people.
No, it's not.
Chancellor, homelessness, poverty. A strong economy is the only way to solve those problems.
Homelessness and poverty, a large majority of that is due to people not being medically taken care of.
Well, the only way to afford to be able to medically take care of all the people who can't
is if we reduce the military budget and if we form a one giant world government where we don't need a military.
One giant world government would have a military to suppress the rights of all of the people who live on the planet.
Not if the government was made up of the people, like it should be.
Chancellor, study history.
Again, you're looking at the past instead of focusing on the future.
That's the same story that the Pol Pot told the Cambodians. That's the same story that Stalin told the Russians. That's the same story that Mao Zedong told the Chinese. Quit looking at the past, focus on the future. The same story.
And you're looking
at millions of people murdered by that story.
And you're looking at the past when you're looking at that story.
Yep. That's
See,
exactly
the
right.
world that you grew up in is not the same world that I grew up in, and not the same world that my kids are going to grow up in, because your world, everyone wasn't instantly connected to one another, and checking the checks and balances come with the people.
I just hope that enough people in your generation will go to the trouble to read a fucking book, because if you guys keep going on this trajectory, you're going to be murdered by the government before you have a chance to have children.
No, we stopped Trump, so we handled that.
Keep telling yourself that.
We stopped the wannabe dictator, so we'll be fine.
Look at the actual communist countries around the world.
I'm not a communist. I don't know why you keep calling me a communist.
One world government. That's what it is. You're talking about controlling the population from a centralized government.
No, I'm not.
What are you talking about?
Talking about a global government that is controlled by the people. Everyone has a phone in their pocket. You want to vote on an issue? Pull up an app. That's the future. That really is the future, and that's what's going to happen.
There's nothing wrong with enabling technologies to allow people to express their opinions. But if you study history, then, and I know you
history
hate
where
history.
iPhones didn't exist. History where people weren't instantly connected and able to find out any information they want at the press of a button. That's the history you're talking about. So everything that you're saying instantly has no basis.
In ancient Egypt, all of the people came together in the assembly. There was instant communication because they were all standing together in the assembly voting on things. Study history. Read a book once in a while. Learn something important.
Egypt?
Sorry,
you mean Greece?
Yes.
Where they had the rocks?
In ancient Greece.
Where they had the rocks.
Where they had democracy.
They had rocks. And they would put rocks in one pot or another pot. The
black and the white rocks.
Yes.
Correct. Direct
I know
democracy.
History.
Okay, well,
I just don't appreciate it because history is full of fools.
Okay, so you acknowledge that in ancient Greece, direct democracy resulted in tyranny, but you think somehow that human nature is different now than it was then.
Yes.
And greed is gone. And self-interest
clearly
is
it's
gone.
not, because you keep trying to push this economic thing.
If greed and self-interest are not gone, then how does it turn out any differently than it did then?
They will be gone. They are slowly disappearing.
How?
With my generation.
How?
Because everyone is instantly
it's slowly
connected.
Disappearing with your generation? Because your fucking generation's parents are paying the bills. When you guys grow up and have to pay your own fucking bills, guess what?
Well,
you're going to go right back to the same way that, and all of your airy-fairy, the world's changing and everybody's going to live in harmony and nobody's going to be looking out for themselves and everybody's going to care about each other, goes out the window when somebody has to pay their own damn electricity bill or get kicked out of their apartment and live on the streets like the other homeless people.
Okay.
As soon as you guys experience a little reality,
like the reality where you handed us, where the reality that your generation handed us, where colleges are hundreds of thousands of dollars, and my entire generation is in debt because of your policies
for shit that's
your fault.
Okay, that is,
you doomed the world. We've been saying that to the boomers for years.
How? By
being greedy,
government student loan programs.
By being greedy.
Well, maybe the college administrators are being greedy.
They're boomers.
Okay, that's true. Eric Weinstein does a very good job talking about this stuff. He has a wonderful podcast called The Portal, where he talks about the fact that the entire U.S. economy was based on a presupposition of growth. and that growth ended in 1972, particularly in the institutions of higher learning and in colleges and universities, because there were no more positions for professors. They were using graduate students as slave labor, essentially, and importing people from other countries to be graduate research students when they knew very well that there was no professorships for them to go fill. So, the colleges and universities took advantage of all these grad students and indebted generations of students to these crazy debts because the government student loan programs allowed colleges and universities to increase their tuitions tenfold. We've talked about that in a prior episode as well, but to bring that back up, another government policy that has fucked everything up, because government is not the solution, government is the problem, and there's no accountability the higher up you get in government.
Clearly, that's why Trump has run rampant. He's got like 4,000 cases pending against him.
The accountability,
he's broken the law so many times,
regardless of the man
and he's
a
racist and a misogynist.
Regardless of the man or woman who is serving as the president, which is totally,
and he's trying to undermine. He's trying to undermine our democracy right now. By yelling fraud when there's no fraud.
Well, there's lots of evidence.
No, there's not. There's no evidence. Where's the evidence, man? Where's the evidence, man?
There was a.
They are constant. He has gotten 16 court cases shot down. Do you know that a lawyer went into Pennsylvania and said that there were no poll watchers, and the judge said, "Were there no poll watchers?" And he said there was a non-zero number of poll watchers.
The point is that the poll watchers were not allowed to be within 6 feet. They were using COVID as an excuse, but the poll watchers are there to watch people count the votes. And when you make them stand 20 feet away, they can't see what they're doing. And the court ordered them to allow the poll watchers. Do you know who counts the
votes? One Democrat and one Republican and one independent. It goes down the line.
Chancellor. That's not always the case.
That is the case. That's what they showed it.
There's one in some places they do it that way, but when they have people that are supposed to be the one Democrat and the one Republican you're talking about are the poll watchers. In some places they sit at the table and count the votes, but in other places like Philadelphia, they make them stand 20 feet away from the tables and they can't see anything. And they went to court, and the state judge said you have to allow them to be within 6 feet. They wouldn't allow them within 6 feet, and about 450,000 votes were counted in violation of the state court order to allow the poll watchers to be within 6 feet. I'm not lying. That's what happened.
Okay.
And it may end up in them overturning 450,000 votes in Pennsylvania.
That's not going to happen, man.
Maybe it won't.
It's not going to happen because it's bullshit, because you're just making this up. You're just repeating a conservative talking point.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah, we already saw. Trump lost.
You haven't seen anything.
The racist lost.
You haven't seen
anything. The racist
anything.
lost.
How many states have been certified?
I don't know.
0.
I don't care. He lost. It's over. You need to accept it. He needs to go away.
0.
He needs to disappear.
0 states have been certified. The election won't be, quote, over until the electors vote on December 12th.
Okay.
So on December 12th, we'll see if Joe Biden is elected.
And if he isn't, there will be a civil war. I'm telling you that.
Thanks to CNN and MSNBC.
And Fox News.
And Fox
Trump.
News.
It's Trump. It's Trumpism.
It's everybody saying
Trumpism.
That the media anoints the president instead of the legal process anointing the president. Follow the process, follow the law, and then whoever wins will be legitimate.
Every case he has brought against it has been shot down. Every case.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
He won one of the cases in Pennsylvania.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
No, he didn't.
Chancellor, look
He's
it up.
0 for like 16 right now.
Look it up. You're wrong.
Okay. You're just denying facts. I don't know why you...
I don't know why you even want to talk about this. It's irrelevant.
You better hope that fucking Joe Biden is president, because if there's a civil war, I'm joining. I'll fight for the freedom, for our freedom, against the MAGA people.
Okay. Well, it's a long walk to the Civil War, because you ain't taking a car.
Why?
Because you're not allowed to.
Says who?
Says your dad.
Okay.
Anyway. So global warming.
I'll just get an Uber.
Okay, you can Uber to the Civil War.
Yeah.
God. So the point is, which I'm trying to get you to understand, that there is a cycle. The peak of the cycle, the highest temperature, is going to occur between 30 and 80 years from now.
Okay.
It's going to peak,
And
then
I
it's
would rather
going
it
to
be
start
80 years from now than
fine.
30.
So
Wouldn't
would I.
you?
Sure. But
You're going to still be here in 30 years.
if the cost of it being 80 years from now instead of 30 years from now is another Great Depression where half the people in the country starve, then no. I'd rather have it 30
Why would
years from now.
investing in green technology cause another Great Depression? That is so
Because
ridiculous of a statement to say.
If you outlaw fossil fuels that power the economy.
No one is talking about completely outlawing any of this.
That's
We're
what the
talking
Green New
about
Deal
slowing
says.
it down.
No, the Green New Deal says outlaw fossil fuels. That's what it says.
No, it
have
doesn't.
Have you even read the Green New
Have
Deal?
you?
Yes.
Okay. And it says we're going to outlaw fossil
Yes.
fuels. So every automaker on the planet, everyone who has a car, all
Yep.
the gas stations,
Yep.
they're all going to go under.
Exactly.
No, that's bullshit, man.
Read it.
It doesn't say we will slowly try to wean out fossil fuels and replace them with electric
Define
vehicles.
slowly.
10 years.
That's slowly?
Yeah.
What's the average life of a car?
I don't know. 10 years?
11.
Okay.
And it's growing because the quality of manufactured automobiles has been increasing.
right now we can switch from creating gas guzzlers to only electric cars right now.
In order to phase out gas cars within 10 years, you would have to immediately stop manufacturing gasoline cars right now.
Yeah.
Because then it would take 10 years for those cars to work their way out of the
Yeah,
environment.
so let's do that.
So you shut down the auto industry.
No, it's not. We're saying retool the auto industry, not shut it down.
You don't have enough customers. You don't have enough batteries. You don't have enough recharging stations. You don't have the
You know why we don't? Because we don't
infrastructure.
have jobs to make those batteries. But the Green New Deal would create those jobs.
Do you know what the environmental impact of mining all of the materials to produce enough lithium batteries to replace all gasoline-powered cars is? Way more than the fucking environmental impact of the fossil fuels. You're going to accelerate global warming by doing that.
Well, then let's make solar-powered cars.
Solar power does not generate enough electricity to power an automobile.
Yet, because we don't have scientists who have created a solar converter that can do that.
That's right. We don't.
Because your generation refuses to invest in the future.
Blame it on our generation. That's
I
fine.
will. I will always. I will
exist.
constantly blame it on your generation
course
because
you
your
will.
generation is the one that caused all these problems.
It doesn't exist.
Yet.
And there's no guarantee that it ever will.
No, but we should try.
Okay, try. But that doesn't.
That's all I'm saying.
You can't shut down the economy while you try. Everybody's going to be homeless and starving.
Oh my God.
You're not thinking. You're just saying stuff that sounds good to you, but you're not actually thinking about anything.
I am thinking.
Okay. So the Green New Deal is silly.
Why?
Because it shuts down the economy. It shuts down the economy. The economy runs on energy. We have reduced our CO2 emissions to below the levels that were specified in the Paris Climate Accords because of fracking technology, and we have switched much of our energy production from coal and petroleum to
Doesn't
natural
fracking poison
gas.
water?
Some. There's always trade-offs. There's always
trade-offs when you try to mine the materials in the earth.
Natural gas from fracking is much cleaner than coal and oil.
So it's the lesser of evils.
Yes.
But why are we focusing on the evils?
Because God has not blessed us. Jesus Christ has not returned with a perfectly clean energy source.
Jesus Christ is a fictional character.
Exactly. So is the Green New Deal.
Oh my God.
Relying on the Green New Deal to get us fucking environmental salvation is like believing that Jesus has come back. It's fantasy.
Well, at least you admit that you're not a right-wing religious fanatic, but you're just right-wing and crazy. But I guess you couldn't be a religious fanatic because you're so greedy, and that would be kind of against that.
It's not. How am I greedy?
You're constantly focusing on the economy. That's all you care about.
Economics is not greed.
Yes, it is.
No, economics is understanding systems and incentives. That's all it is. It's understanding supply and demand. That is economics. Understanding that when you have a certain supply of things and you have a certain demand for things, you get an equilibrium price for those things. There are markets. People exchange things. As long as people are willing to exchange products for other products or their labor for products, economics will be a reality. You cannot get away from economics until people are not exchanging anymore. As long as people want to exchange with one another, economics will always be a thing.
Okay.
And has nothing to do with greed.
Okay.
Great. So anyway, the point is that the global climate is changing and has been changing, has always been changing. Luckily,
and you're saying we shouldn't even try to fix it. We shouldn't even try. We should not even try. We should just give up. We should just keep polluting. No. We should just tank the world. Why do I care? I'm not going to be here in 80 years, so why should I give a fuck?
That is not what I'm saying.
That's exactly what you're saying.
We talked about, I think everybody should move into an earthship. I think they should get rid of these housing, the building codes, and let people build really environmentally friendly and efficient homes. But they won't. They won't let you build the most effective, environmentally friendly home. They won't let you do it.
Of course. The right-wing conservative people who are hoarding money.
Municipal governments and building codes, they prevent you from building a thermal mass passive solar home. You have to move out into the middle of some rural county to get permission to build an earthship. It is the solution. And Michael Reynolds and his team, they go around the country building earthships after hurricanes to take care of people. Because if you go to Haiti or Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or someplace after there's been, or Bangladesh, someplace after there's been a hurricane, they say, screw the building codes. Our people are homeless. Our people need help. And they go in there and they take a bunch of tires, used tires, which is one of the biggest environmental problems in the whole world. There are mountains and mountains and mountains of used tires that get burned and throw rubber, fumes and vapors into the atmosphere when they burn these giant mountains of tires. And instead of just burning these mountains of tires, they take the tires, they line them up, they pound earth into them with sledgehammers, and they create houses out of them. Houses that are more fuel efficient than the houses that are specified by the most strict eco-friendly green label building codes. You build an earthship. It's constantly 70 degrees. It's so efficient that you can power the house with solar power. It processes all of its own water. It catches its water on the roof, puts it into cisterns, filters it, uses it for drinking water, uses it to flush the toilet, and then the black water goes out and waters the landscaping and is processed on site so it doesn't go into a sewage system and it doesn't create toxic sludge at a sewage processing plant. Though that technology exists.
I know, and it's being suppressed.
Right.
By the greedy right-wing conservative people who only want to make a buck.
It's not. For the most part, the builders that maintain these building codes
are all very, very conservative.
They maintain their monopolies by supporting municipal governments, county governments, which are primarily Democratic. They make huge contributions to local Democratic politicians to maintain their market power.
Okay.
That's not right-wing. Right-wing is about liberty.
No, right-wing is about conservatism.
Liberty.
Conservatism.
Yes, liberty. Conserving liberty.
Oh my God.
Conserving liberty.
Trying to rewind us back to the 1950s.
When how the federal government was about 1/3 the size that it is right now in the 1950s.
Before Bush.
Before Nixon, before Kennedy. Kennedy was 63. We're talking about the 50s. We're talking about immediately after World War II.
Yeah, but the massive expanse of the government came because of Bush.
No. It has been a steady increase.
There was a giant leap during the Bush years.
There was a giant leap during the Kennedy years. There has been giant leaps in the size.
And Reagan.
Sure.
And Reagan is probably in hell right now, waiting for heaven to drip down on him. Trickle down on him.
The issue is, and we talked about this before, we talked about the multiplier. The more money the government spends, the less money is spent in the private sector. The biggest thing that the government spends its money on is the military. The federal government
is the military.
The biggest expense of the federal government
is the military.
Is actually entitlements, guarantees, like things like guarantees on student loan and loan guarantees for housing and Social Security and Medicare. Those are far
military
bigger.
Is like 80% of the budget.
Discretionary budget. When they say the military is 80% of the budget, that's the discretionary budget.
Okay.
Not the total budget. There are things that the federal government has obliged itself to pay that far outweigh the size of the military.
Like what?
Like guaranteeing student loans and providing Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and all of these entitlement programs.
Okay. Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid.
Yes.
Are what are needed to take care of the people.
Sure, I agree. I'm just saying it's bigger than the military. I agree with you. I'm just saying you think that cutting the military budget solves all the problems because you have an inflated understanding of how big it is. Way too big. I'm not arguing. The military budget is way too big. But cutting it in half doesn't solve all the problems.
It solves a lot of them. That's what I'm saying. Even if it solves one problem.
Okay. No argument.
It's about trying to be
a
better person.
Do you know why the military budget is so big?
Because of private contractors.
Because Congress...
Because of greedy private contractors who raise the rates on shit that they build.
Because, yes, in essence, because...
It's the conservative right wing.
The military manufacturers...
Yeah.
Locate their offices. The military manufacturers locate their offices in the districts of the most influential Congress people.
Yeah.
They will move their headquarters to Norfolk, Virginia, or wherever the ranking member of the House Ways and Means Committee is. They move their headquarters to the places where the most powerful congressmen are from.
Well, yeah, because they're greedy and they want to grease them up.
Yes.
Because they're evil. They're evil, right-wing, military, death squad
Most
people.
Most of them are Democrats.
Okay.
Most of these powerful member of the Congress is controlled by the Democrats and has been for a long time. If you look over the last 50 years, the Democrats have controlled the Congress for about 80% of that.
So the House, you're talking.
The House,
the
yes.
House, yeah. The House that's made up of
the House.
The House, which is made up of a representation of the actual people, versus the Senate, where Wyoming gets the same amount as California, even though California should probably have 10 times more senators than Wyoming.
Yes. The House Ways and Means Committee is the official committee that creates the budget of the United States government. And the ranking member on the House Ways and Means Committee in a democratically controlled Congress, which it has been for 80% of the last 50 years, is a Democrat. So you calling it right-wing conspiracy that the military contractors are getting all this money is just not factual. The people that make the budget have been Democrats for 80% of the last 50 years.
And you don't think they can be wolves in sheep clothing?
Okay.
If they want to prop up the military, that is not a Democratic thing.
Oh, really? Ask Joe Biden. He's been doing it for 47 years.
Well, at least he's on the right side. At least he's not evil.
I thought you just said propping up the military-industrial complex was the definition of evil. Yeah. All right. Anyway, maybe you learned something.
I've never said that I'm like, It was anything to get out of Trump out. Anything. I'm Bernie.
You'll have four. Me too.
Well,
Me
then
too.
why are you a Trumper? That makes absolutely no
I'm
sense.
Anti-federal
That makes absolutely
government.
no sense.
I'm anti-federal government.
Bernie wants to expand the government, man. Bernie wants to expand the government to take care of everybody and to take down Wall Street. You, as an economic greedy person, should be anti-Bernie to your core. That doesn't make any sense.
You're right. It doesn't. I just thought he was cute. I liked him. I liked his position on marijuana legalization.
He shares the same position as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on marijuana legalization.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll see.
She flipped.
We'll see.
They flipped.
Okay. I'll believe it when I see it.
You will.
I think they just said it to get elected.
Well, it worked.
Well, we'll see.
And at least you admit that they got elected. At least you're admitting that Trump lost now.
We'll see if they follow through.
The problem is, here's the problem, that actual legalization, national legalization, will wind up hurting the marijuana industry. Because it's going to allow Philip Morris to come in. It's going to allow, and they're already ready. They're already ready for it to be legal nationwide. And the problem is that if it was a state thing, like it is now, that the small mom and pops can survive. But once Philip Morris comes in and you can cross state lines with marijuana, just like you can with alcohol, then it's going to completely change and it's going to become corrupt. And it already is. I mean, Taylor works for a giant.
Well, how is it different than the beer market?
What do you mean? Oh, I'm saying there will still be microbrews. There'll still be that. But, I think.
And Taylor has worked for some mom and pop places that couldn't figure out how to grow good weed.
Yeah.
So if you've got all of the resources of Philip Morris, maybe they can grow some consistent weed that would be superior to the mom and pop stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Anyway,
I don't know where I stand on that because I don't think that it should be illegal. I don't think it should be illegal, but I also don't think that like Philip Morris, that giant corporation, should be able to come in. But you can't have it both ways. So
correct.
I don't know.
I mean, maybe it'll be like coffee, because it's that particular plant is so. With indoor, it's different because you can create climates with indoor. But at least for outdoor grows, there are particular climates that produce good product and particular climates that do not.
Yeah, and that's why they're saying that Oregon will be like the Napa Valley of weed.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
we'll see. Oregon might become the Napa Valley for fucking cocaine and meth too because of what just happened.
It already is. Have you seen downtown Portland? You don't think this is the meth capital of the world?
No. It's not like downtown LA.
Your brother
or downtown Chicago.
Your cousin Justin thinks that Portland is the meth capital of the world. He sees a lot of it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know where I stand on that. I do not know where I stand on that, because I do think that I don't think that people should be arrested for consuming a drug at all, like any drug, because
whatever
it's their
you
body.
Do to your own body, you should be your own business.
Yes.
As long as you're not hurting another person,
that's the
or
thing.
the person that's growing inside of you.
Okay. Do not want to touch on that again. But I don't know. That is where there's friction, because someone could, but I don't know.
All right. Well, we're at an hour, so we can pick this up in another episode.
Okay. So we talked about the environment, and
we talked about global warming. We talked about the trade-off of decimating the livelihoods and lives of the people that are alive now to try and
save the people in the future,
to try and postpone the inevitable for 30 or 40 years.
Well, if we postpone the inevitable for 30 or 40 years and we have research and we invest in science and we figure out how to slow things down even further, or how to get off the planet, or how to terraform the moon and then terraform Mars, and then like I want to get out of the I want to see the fucking universe, man. I don't want to be stuck on this rock my whole life.
There are dozens, if not hundreds, of people who listen to this podcast who would love for that to happen.
Yeah, all you Trumpers will be happy when I'm on another planet.
We can have a Zoom call. We can continue the podcast via Zoom from the moon.
Yeah, the terraformed moon. Why aren't we doing that? That's what we need. That's what we should be trying to do. They found water on the moon.
Yeah, I know.
We need to terraform the moon as a test, and then terraform Mars.
Everything costs money, buddy. Every dollar you spend terraforming the moon is a dollar that you don't have to spend housing the homeless. So make your choices.
Or terraforming the moon so that we can move people there.
I'm just saying everything has a trade-off.
Yeah, instead of spending money on the military, we spend money on that. That's every dollar for anything in the future should come out of the military budget.
Yeah. Or you could make subscribing to porn sites illegal. There's probably more money going through porn sites than the military industrial complex.
Who pays for porn?
I don't know.
It's free.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
No one pays for porn. If you're paying for porn, man,
I don't.
You need to stop because that shit's free.
Oh, I don't even know. Okay.
No one pays for porn. I don't know anybody. How do
the performers in porn get paid if nobody pays for it?
Advertising.
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing. It's just like TV.
An ad model?
An ad model.
So who advertises on porn?
Weed Maps. A ton of everybody.
Interesting.
A Republican state representative had an ad on Pornhub.
Did it work?
I think so. I think he got elected.
Okay.
I think it was in Oklahoma. I read a story about it.
All right.
Porn sites get way more hits than everything else. So
really?
It's actually really smart to advertise. Maybe we should advertise this podcast. Maybe that's where I should be promoting my music.
Okay.
Anyways.
So speaking of your music.
Yeah.
This is a new song that we did yesterday.
Yep. Made this one together. It's called The Beastie Buckingham. Speaking of porn site, that kind of, now that I think of it, kind of sounds like a Dirty Sanchez. So here it is, The Beastie Buckingham.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Chance. Closer. I got bars they can't touch. Bring it hard, spark the dark. La 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 la. Shake the system, quake the street. I advise a quick retreat. La 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 la.